So I would have kept the bubbles on, but unfortunately, the hot tub is very loud. So hi, welcome back everyone. I finally figured out my framing device for this video. So if you were with me for the Naruto video, I'm so sorry about that. The drinking game is unfair. You will get alcohol poisoning and die. I'm gonna try and find a spot for this, but hi, I'm just having fun today. This was the video that I've been working on in my brain. I tried filming it last time. Unfortunately, it was raining for the foreseeable future. The version I filmed of it was not my best work, and if I didn't feel proud of it or feel like it was good enough, then I wasn't going to put it out there. The Naruto video was what I could get out when I got out. Disclaimer, I could have and should have done a lot more research for that video, but it was an argumentative premise based on what I could remember. Today's video is going to be a little bit more simple and close to the heart. So right around now is the time when my hometown of Kenton, Ohio and Kenton McKinley would be going back to school. And I have been out as an openly gay man since I was 14. First week of high school. In Kenton, Ohio, Kenton McKinley Senior High School, right next to the Football Hall of Fame, the only football rivalry bet on in Las Vegas to this day that I know of. I should probably look this up. Based on what I know, it still holds up. And I wanted to share some thoughts with, queer youth out there. I'm 27, going on 28 as of June 9th. Same day as Johnny Depp's birthday. Great for me, awesome. Things have changed. When I was coming out and being open with who I was, we had Glee, we had Lady Gaga. Gay marriage was not something that was talked about as if it was just a possibility. It was talked about as something that was struggled and fought for. Trans visibility wasn't really on the radar. Logo Channel, all they played was RuPaul's Drag Race and a couple episodes of Queer as Folk or, Noah's Ark. It's been a very different world growing up and coming out when I was doing it than it is today. We didn't have Pose, we didn't have Heartstoppers, and we'll touch base on that at some point during this video. We didn't have all the queer representation that we do now, and it is phenomenal. It is awesome. Spoilers alert, I was an anime person. I still am an anime person. I was on a Sekaiichi Hatsukoi and Junjo Romantica kick far before, Call Me By Your Name or Love Simon was a thing. Those things came out very early on. Sekaiichi Hatsukoi, which is my favorite anime series to this date, was out in 2011, and it depicted a queer romance and the queer struggles of queer love between men, working together, being with one another, dealing with heartbreak and fallout and reconnection. We've had a lot of media, surprisingly, that doesn't get paid attention to because it is kind of hopeful and it is kind of happy and it is kind of complicated. It's not tragic, it's not sad, it's not gruesome and edgy and dark. It is sexual because that's what homosexuality is, sexuality. Being queer, both today, back then, and probably going forward, is complicated. That's what I have to say. It is complicated. Aside from, the stigma, aside from the, the fact like 40, 50 years ago, homosexuality was pathologized and illegal. Like, you could be sent to jail for being homosexual. You couldn't donate blood. HIV was, and kind of still is, I'm sorry, HIV is very dangerous. You shouldn't just willingly try and get HIV a death sentence. It gives you more immunity complications. It gives you cancer risks. It makes you more likely to experience diseases and illnesses. It is not something that is desirable in your body, nor in the body of others. Even with PrEP and all these things today, you should still be concerned about those things. And while queerness has become more normalized, it is still complicated. It is still something that you should, take from a stance of historical oppression, historical isolation, historical tragedy, because that's where a lot of queer people start from. We often focus on the queer youth and the hopefulness and the romance and teenagerdom, due in part by the fact that queer elders, the ones who have survived, they have a lot of hurt and trauma and problems that need attending to. Most queer people are alone. Most queer people do deal with substance abuse issues, with alcoholism, with sex addiction, with financial loss and poverty, with family trauma and baggage that still hasn't been healed and sometimes never can be. If you hear that in the background, that's one of the dogs. So when I think about queerness today especially, I think about, if you've ever watched Pose, there's an episode in Pose where MJ Porter's character Blanca wants to go out and celebrate at New York's hottest gay bar. It is basically a man's bar, and Blanca, being a trans woman, a trans woman of color that goes into this white hoity-toity establishment, hoping to find community, hoping to be served a drink at a bar made for men pursuing other men. And this episode left me with a lot of, issues, or just thoughts, concerns, like perspectives, epiphanies. Lots of things came up. Because Blanca kind of has a point. Trans women, and especially trans women of color, have done a lot of activism and work and have dealt with a lot of the brunt of not only homophobia and transphobia, but of HIV and AIDS, of incarceration, of the prison system, exploitation, incarceration. Like, the trans women have dealt with a lot of issues, and as people identified male at birth and who have a much more tangible and difficult struggle than even openly queer men do, especially those like myself who don't enjoy feminization. That's just not who I am. I've had to struggle with that. That's my struggle. You realize Blanca going into this bar and subsequently making a big deal about it, making a scene about it, and getting kicked out for being a woman who is not respected nor even seen or treated like a woman. So you've got a few things going on here. You have Blanca wanting to go into a queer space. She is queer, she's a trans woman, she was identified male at birth like these gay men in this gay bar. There is a connection and a relation here. And drag queens are basically the step between trans women and men, right? A little bit, not to, belittle what it is to be trans, trying to get a conversation going here. You have this reality, and then you have these queer men who sort of want to kick somebody when they're down. Because knowing that this trans woman is suffering a lot of the same issues as them, of isolation, neglect, of abandonment by their families, of HIV and AIDS, of legal, what's the word for it, oppression. You see this person trying to just get a drink at a bar in a space they are not welcome, but theoretically should be. And you see the sort of disjunction between queer people right then and there. Blanca is a trans woman in a gay bar asking for a drink for her and her friend. The bar is a gay male bar. They don't want women there. They don't want femininity there. And yet Blanca is the kind of person, and ideally a person that they should serve and respect and see as a woman. They try to push her out. They kick her when she's down, they throw her out, they call the cops. Or how do you really reconcile that? Because while Blanca has a point where she deserves to be served in this bar, it's not a space meant nor accommodating to that. It is a man's bar, and Blanca is a woman. So you see the difficulties and the prejudices within the queer community itself, while also acknowledging that Blanca is essentially trying to assert herself in a space where she is not welcome, not based on her queerness, but on her womanhood. Because Blanca is a woman trying to assert herself in a gay male space. She has been treated like a gay man in women's clothing all her life, and now she's getting that same treatment from people who are essentially reduced and equated to her as well. A prejudice of gay men is that you're just a trans woman waiting to happen, that you're not a real man, that you are a funny costume to put on, that gay men just all enjoy, want, and desire drag and femininity in their lives. And the bar itself is just a bunch of men in suits. There's a moment between Blanca and a queer man of color where she says, "They don't want us here," and the black man responds succinctly, "No, honey, they don't want you here." Blanca tries to reassert herself, I think about 3-4 times. It carries on for about an episode or two. It never gets brought up again, and I think that's because I'm getting triggered by the word because. And I think that has to do with the fact that Blanca realizes her activism efforts are better spent, on more direct and important causes. Her cause is justified. Yeah, a trans woman kind of does deserve to be served in a bar, especially a queer bar where trans women and trans women of color, especially, and gay men have benefited a lot from one another's presence, activism, and efforts in the legal, the social, and the political world. Trans women still get the brunt of the bullshit, pardon my French, I'm trying to curse less. Trans women are still the ones who take more of the beatings. Trans women are still the ones who get ousted more from society and their families more, who really feel the impacts of isolation, abandonment, neglect, abuse, so on and so forth. The ones who probably felt more of the impacts of AIDS and HIV, and probably still do. The ones who are more likely to suffer from substance abuse problems, drug addiction, incarceration, sexual assault, so on and so forth. Because they are the thing that you can get away with treating like garbage on the side of the road. And for queer people themselves, who don't always get treated with the respect, the admiration, the attention, or the accolades they feel that they deserve, or sometimes do actually deserve, it's nice to feel that you are cut above the rest, I suppose. So the problem that I want to touch base on is that there is sort of a disconnect between queer experiences. There is sort of issues and complications that don't ever really get resolved or solved, but sort of have to be, pushed under the rug a little bit, overlooked in favor of something more meaningful. In the episode that I'm talking about, Electra Abundance, who is Blanca Evangelista's original mother, goes to her shop in the nail salon that she's working at and says, "I admire what you're doing. I think you're fighting a losing battle," or something along the lines of that. That you can go after these, and I admire that you're resolve, but sometimes you're fighting a fight to fight a fight. Sometimes you're starting a conflict in order to feel like you're being big and important and activizing, that you are creating a legacy for yourself. Is every fight worth fighting? Is every battle worth having? The issue on Blanca's part with the gay bar, it never comes up again. It is immediately dropped in favor of supporting her children, in favor of pursuing her own career, in favor of doing what's right in regards to HIV and AIDS and the church. Blanca fights a lot of struggles and deals with a lot of hostility and resentment, even within her own family and within her own community. Sometimes we fight a fight and a struggle in order to be seen, having one, in order to see the difficulties inherent within our own lives. At least that's my takeaway, because I cannot say I necessarily feel bad for Blanca when I watch this episode. MJ Porter is an amazing singer. Dominique Jackson, and I can't remember all the names because I'm bad with a lot of names. They all do this amazing job, and yet you also realize that these women, these trans women of color, they are human beings with flaws, with struggles, with difficulties, who also have to learn the hard way. Avoid drugs, avoid alcohol, avoid reckless, emotionally laden and desperate sexual activities, the consequences of not wearing a condom, the consequences of having to add more and more struggles to your plate because you're trying to achieve something more and greater and better. The fear that comes along with just being a queer person. Yeah, a lot of people don't ever get tested. They don't reveal their status. They don't even concern themselves with the worries of syphilis or hepatitis, herpes, human papillomavirus, a lot of which don't ever show symptoms ever until you start to feel the consequences of that. Syphilis can eat away at your brain. And yet there are plenty of men on the down low and in the closet cheating on their wives, still even to this day, or feeling ashamed of themselves, so they keep it a secret. They keep it under covers. They keep it hush-hush, to the detriment of both them, their partners, and on top of that, their children and their wives, who they expose these diseases to. The people most likely to catch and contract HIV after trans women and gay men are women of color whose partners lied to them and cheated on them. The difficulties that I found, and I'm going to try and get this back on topic a little bit, is that despite the pride that you kind of have to carry with yourself and the resilience to want to see better, you have to acknowledge that queer people in and of themselves are human beings, flawed, broken, intentionally cruel, misguided, ignorant human beings who do people wrong and dirty sometimes. Me, myself included, I am sure that there are things in my life, and I am certain of that, that I did not behave and act the best that I wanted to. that I could not have been the person that I ideally wanted to be. That my own fears, insecurities, egoisms, and pride can sometimes do both me wrong, my relationships wrong, and on top of and outside of that, the people who I do want to do right by. The people that I hope I feel I can do right by, and unfortunately sometimes just happen to disappoint. There's been this ongoing trend in my life where people just tell me how successful I'm going to be or how great I'm going to be. And this isn't a brag or an insert. This is more so just something internal that I've had to deal with. When you're constantly told how amazing that you are or you are going to be, isn't it difficult when people realize and have to face up to your own humanity, your own insecurities, your own capabilities of limitation and letting people down, that you feel resentful towards those people? Well, you want me to be this thing and you see this thing in me. Why aren't you giving me this thing? Why aren't you helping me become this thing? So let me put it real here for you. Here are some things as a gay man, openly out since he was 14, openly out for almost 14 years now. Some things that I've learned. When I was out, it was 2010. Okay? Since then, we have seen gay marriage been constitutionally approved by the Supreme Court. As of last year, it has been written into law. Same-sex marriage is now law of the land. It is not a constitutional interpretation. It is legally put into law. That's awesome. Look at that. Sometimes things just really do get better. Since I've been out, when I was out, there was a blood drive at school. I was 15, 16, I had sex with a man. Guess what? I wasn't allowed to donate blood. And I had to be the person who wanted to donate blood, who actively made an honest call. You know what, if that's what the law says, I'm not allowed to donate blood. I was one of the few and only friends. I was a speech team member. I was a speech team, like, councilman, I guess, is the best way I have it. And I couldn't donate blood like everyone else. Those rollbacks and those protections are slowly being undone as of this week and last week. That's awesome. It's not that I'm not open and out and honest with my sexuality. It's that you feel the weight and the burden of being who you are and being your best and most authentic self, that you have struggles and complications. Well, maybe if I was more masculine, well, maybe if I was taller, well, maybe if I was more willing to, put myself out there, do drugs and alcohol recklessly, well, maybe if I ran away to New York or California, I would be seeing the success and the honest to goodness happiness that is so purported and touted by things like the Trevor Project, who, despite the fact queer elders need so much assistance and help, even more so than the youth today, who have it really, really easy comparatively, the Trevor Project cuts you off, calling them at 25. Well, look what happened. A global pandemic started when I was 24, and then I realized, wow, I have a year and then I'm fucked. So why bother calling? Because I'm really tired, and I think a lot of people are tired of being told it gets better, or be patient, or wait. Unfortunately, the world is larger than you, and you really do just have to accept those facts. Let me tell you right now, patience is not antithetical to greed, but you and I and everyone deserve better now. I'm sorry. As someone who has been out, who has been open, who has been honest and authentic, my first speech and debate, guess what? It was about how being gay is normal. How I was gay at 15. I told a very large speech district, one of the largest in the nation, I believe, in Northeast Ohio, for an entire year at Sylvania, the largest tournament in the state, larger than states, that I was gay and it was normal. I was thoroughly known and branded as that gay kid from McKinley in speech and debate. From then on, let me tell you, it gets better means you're gonna face isolation and loneliness and disappointment, dismissal, people wanting to keep you a dirty secret, people who aren't gonna date you because their dad's homophobic and won't accept them, because they're not strong enough, they're not ready ever, even though that they have far more privilege, power, financial stability, and ability, success, a home, a family that loves them and probably would be fine with it. Maybe they wouldn't. I don't know their family, right? The hard part about being queer is you have to bite a lot of bullets and swallow a lot of bitter pills. I'm going to tell you the difference between those facts. Bullets only ever harm you. Stop learning to bite bullets, because one day you're not going to be able to catch them. Grit your teeth when you have to through the pain, but don't ever take any more bullets. Swallow some bitter pills, because bitterness makes the sweet things all the more sweet in comparison. That sometimes life is a little bit too sweet and you need a reality check. The bitter things are healthy for you. Bitter herbs are some of the most nutritive things that you can consume and swallow. I'm here to tell you that in my life, I did not get to go to my senior prom with my boyfriend. I played that gay friend who went with their overweight friend from another school, who we had a great time. I had an amazing time at those proms. I had one boyfriend in all my 4 years of high school. Lasted for 3 months. Lasted technically for 4 months, till one day he went to a theater camp in Boston and stopped calling and texting, and then broke up with me after he got back, because he wasn't strong enough or whatever. I've had people I've met who, you know, it seems like everything's going well and works out on paper, and that this should be my relationship, that this should be my romance story or whatever, only for me to never feel sexually attracted to them. And you feel like shit because you feel like you're being greedy and ungrateful and like an awful judgmental fatphobic person. And it's not the fact that they don't look good, it's that the fact that you don't feel the spark and the charge like you want. That you try and put yourself out there, you try to find connection, you try, and nothing ever seems to work out the way it should. That unfortunately wanting better does sort of mean having to lay out harsh realities and accept hard feelings and being the person who disappoints and lets people down. that you are going to hurt people, even if you do have it worse, quote unquote, than other people. That you are a human being capable of flaw, insecurity, disappointment, disrespect. And to be fair, I've stood up for myself in plenty of ways that, I look back on and I feel upset by, because I'm like, maybe if I was just better, and maybe if I was able to just be more, take it on the chin, if I was willing to suffer unhappiness for some ideal of what people think my life should be like, and even I think my life should be like. One of the things that really has helped me is business guru Mel Robbins laid it out simply in one of her books. Priorities. Top 3 priorities. Number 3, money. Money comes and goes. Money can be wasted to its own benefit. Money can be invested to its own detriment, right? Money will come and go. Your number 1 priority should not be money. It should be your 3rd priority. Your 2nd priority should be your time, because you have a lot of it, but it is forever dwindling, or in reality ever expanding, because I have not lived through my 40s yet. I have not gotten to see that time. And if I'm not careful, I could easily give myself no more time ever again. I could pull out of here, get into a car crash, and no more time. Your time is a limited resource, but it shouldn't be your number 1 priority. Your number 1 priority, those things that energize you, those things that make you feel alive and focused, empowered, capable, fulfilled, happy, whatever you want to call it. As someone who has been living with depression for a very long time now, who had to go on medication during the pandemic, who had to be on the maximum dosage of Zoloft because a needle feeling in my chest sent me to the ER one night, where I had to drive myself to and from, only to be looked at by the doctor and told, "You have anxiety." I didn't have COVID, but I had such intense pain in my chest that I had to drive myself to the ER. I wasn't sleeping for more than an hour a day a month, and I had to work basically a full-time job. I have learned the hard way that reality is kind but not always nice. That what doesn't kill you does not always make you stronger, and sometimes what doesn't kill you just causes you harm. It does get better sometimes. It does get better in certain ways. You have to find those things that make you feel alive, that make you feel like you can stand up for yourself, that you can take down the biggest monsters. And we're not talking about cockiness or ignorance or delusion. We're talking about energy. Things that make you feel like you can do more, that you can do more better, that you can do more with more quality, intentionality, action, effort, focus. Because you're not always going to have that energy. You don't know what it's going to come from. You don't know where it's going to come from, how it's going to come, and what form it will take. You have to learn how to capitalize on a resource that really doesn't have any rhyme or reason or logic, and make a rhyme, reason, and logic in it and in trying to find it. So, number 1 priority, energy. Number 2 priority, time. Number 3 priority, money. Sometimes those 2 things cause the first one. Sometimes that first one can inhibit the other 2. But learn to cherish what's important in life. Like people who actually go out of their way to pursue a relationship with you, people who care about you, people who are concerned about you in a way where they know you could be doing better and help you achieve that. That they see what you need and what can empower you. In all honesty, being queer has been a very isolating and lonely experience. Despite the fact people tell me that I have been admired, that I have been out and open and authentic and impressive upon people and have made an impact on people, that doesn't mean they've been here with me or been through it with me. Sometimes it means that they see me as the thing leading the life meant to be lived, while they get to sit on the sidelines and be a bystander. All I've ever wanted in my life is for queerness to be normal. because it is. That I am not a disease, a pathology, a crime, nor a sin, because a sin is just a crime against God and the heavens. So if it's not a crime, it's not a sin. I'm sorry. It's not. You have to be willing to take your own stands and roll with the punches. You have to be willing to accept that just because you're ready doesn't mean other people are. You're going to have to accept that there's a lot of things you might have taken for granted when you were younger, and now that you're older, you're starting to see why this was so hard and why this was such a big deal to people. I'm gonna say this right now. It has gotten better. I have found people that we sit down to dinner at the table every night. I have a pool. I have access to a pool. I have access to this hot tub. I have a nice, comfortable bed with awesome, comfortable people and role models that I get to see and learn a real relationship from. They train, raise, and breed seeing eye dogs. They run a nonprofit for veterans. All things considered, I'm really, really blessed. Better does not mean easy. Let me tell you right now, better did not ever mean easy. Better does not mean less or more difficult. Better just means comfortable, okay, safe, secure, stability. And sometimes that might mean easier, I suppose. But life has its own challenges for everyone. You're gonna have to face up to the fact and reality that sometimes life and the consequences of your actions are your fault. Not a nature versus nurture sort of deal, but sometimes that you just didn't know better. That you fucked up. That you did not have the best information, the best access to the best resources. That some people were raised growing up skiing and surfing and traveling to Europe or Asia or wherever, and you've never even left the country. You've never thought about the point of a passport, because why would you? That's farther out and beyond your reach than you can really think about or entertain. I'm worried about the debts that I still have to pay. I'm worried about the fact I haven't had income in months. I'm worried about the fact that I am beholden and at the behest of people who could literally turn me out of their house at any point on a whim. And that I have experienced that. That we went through a global pandemic and people can find excuses to abandon, isolate, belittle, and dismiss people instead of seeing their humanity and recognizing their fear, their needs, their limitations as a fellow human being. That, yeah, I really hate to say this, sex is inherently dangerous as much as it is pleasurable. That life doesn't always give you a forewarning or an advance when you feel that it might have been better if they did. That you're not always lucky. That you might be one of the luckiest people in the world, but your luck will not always save you. There will not always be a safety net. That is why we do our best to provide ourselves with those things, to build them, to enhance them and construct them, to position them in the right way, to give them the right form and meaning that they need to in order to be effective and efficient and there when it matters most. it is not going to be an easy life to live as a queer person. It will get better, it will hopefully become more normal and just routine, that healthcare's access will become greater and more commonplace. But you will still struggle, you will still face your own challenges, and you will have to accept the challenges of others as you face your own. You will have to lead a life where every human being faces their own challenges and problems. You're gonna have to grow up in your world and not mine. You're going to have to learn to see things from others' perspectives. So study history, find your own queer role models and elders and mentors, put up boundaries early, learn how to respect yourself, learn how to respect them by respecting yourself. Respect them enough to respect yourself. Stand up for yourself. Push your limits and your comfort zones while maintaining a principle of safety, of honesty, transparency, authenticity. Not of control necessarily, but of empowerment, of ability, of resources and means. I'd still rather be called a faggot than gay. Because goddamn gay is too gay for me. Gosh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, everyone. I know that's homophobic as all get out, but I don't. Oh God, I like flitty. I like faggoty. I like. It makes me feel a little bit more tough. It's hard feeling like a man when you don't have a car, you haven't had a job, you have to rely on other people and constantly ask for help or hope to receive some sort of charity and grace. And most people my age, from high school, some of them, not most of them, some of them, have houses and wives and children, divorces, insurance, family vacations when school lets out, reunions. No one even did anything for my birthday this year. There have been a lot of holidays alone. A lot of holidays I wanted to spend alone, a lot of holidays I just ended up spending alone because the people in my life weren't energizing enough for me or happy, or like they didn't feel like home and family. There are lots of times where you're gonna have to remind yourself that this is just life right now. This isn't the way it always has been. This isn't the way it's always gonna be. That there are people who have gone through worse than you have because they didn't have the access to technology and information that you do, and books and Amazon and all those nice things. That while there are challenges that are scary and existentially damning, that your upkeep is your responsibility. Take responsibility for yourself, your own health, your own maintenance. Do what you can for you and try to make the best of it. Make it out to the other end. Give yourself another end to get to. Scream, cry, kick, have a mental breakdown. Try to finish this video before the data runs out on your phone, because I'm tired of deleting things on my phone in between video takes. Yeah. Just do what you can, because life and the world getting better, you getting better, does not mean you're never gonna struggle. Doesn't mean life is gonna be on easy mode forever. It means that you're gonna be able to hopefully handle more, deal with more, involve yourself with more, experience more, whether that be fear, discomfort, isolation. Want to experience the good and the bad, because life is more than just happiness and comfort and naivete. right? Yeah. Don't look at this as a bad omen or something to say that life is going to be terrible and you're going to die. I mean, because we all just do. That's just sort of a fact. Don't worry about that. Look at life as an opportunity to experience, whether that be positive or negative or neutral. Learn to take on the valences of your life with an eagerness and a willingness to see them as inherently beneficial, because life is positive, death is absence. There is positivity in negativity, there is growth in loss, and growth really just does entail loss. You're gonna lose a lot, but you're gonna gain more than you ever thought you might. In order to grow up, you have to give up being small. If a sapling wants to grow into a tree, it has to give up being this tiny little seedling and develop branches that can be cut off, fruits that can be left out to spoil. Okay? Learn to accept the losses and the negatives of your life as par for the course. Look at the net gain rather than the overall total loss. Learn lessons where lessons can be made. Accept difficulty as an inherent part of the process. All right, that's really all I have to say, because I feel like I've been kind of rambling on. That's why they're called rambles. If you were a fan of this video, if you had some tea to spill or share, like, share, and subscribe. Take a screenshot or a picture. I hope you thought this video was pretty slick. These are my body oils that I use for my upkeep. Because this is, make sure you take care of yourself. Chlorine and pools are very drying out of your skin. Give yourself some moisture as well as some hydration. Thank you all for being here with me. I know that life isn't difficult, especially if you're gay or struggling with your identity, or queer or pan or bi, trans, so on and so forth, alphabet soup. I hope this is just another tool in the toolbox that you get to use, and that you pursue some more queer theory, some education, some philosophy, some history, some divergent opinions, some useful opinions. I hope the opinions that you find are always useful and backed up and scientifically and logically and thoughtfully driven and pursued. Yep. If you want one of these hats, by the way, this is from Lockwood 51. I love their website. I want one of these hats in red. I want a red F@9907. I want one of these in red. I get the lavender, it looks amazing. I think they have it in pink as well. I want one of these in red, and I want an F anarchy symbol G hat with red lettering as well. Okay, my traps have gotten so nice. All right. Traps really are gay. Thank you all for being here with me. I know it's not easy, because it's not, nor has it ever been. I promise it does get better, though, in ways that you might not ever expect. Okay?